Hey everyone, I'm Peck, and today on Pehk and Collabs we have another guest with us today. He goes by the name of Alpha J from the Alpha J Show.
The Alpha. Hey Alpha J, how's it going?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
So, first things first, tell us a little bit about your channel.
Well, back in August of 2015, I wanted to start talking about animation. It was actually going to be a side channel. Originally, I was going to be a joint Let's Play channel with a good friend of mine, but football really became a big part of his life, so I kind of started without him. And this was actually going to be the channel where I did the stuff that I wanted to do that he wasn't interested in, which was animation reviews, Let's Plays on games that he didn't really play. And animation reviews really took off, and it became a really big thing.
Yeah, I've had the chance to watch a couple reviews, and I wanted to just ask, what would, in your rankings, I probably know you have a bunch, but could you narrow down your favorite cartoon?
This is a question I get tons on live streams, like
I'm
what's your
sure.
favorite this and that. And the answer I generally go with is Ed, Edd n Eddy's. Very safe choice. It's one of the cartoons I loved growing up and still love today.
Yeah.
Another one would be Gumball. I'm currently working on a video about 16. That would be like my favorite Teletoon show. There's also King of the Hill, favorite adult animated show. But it really depends on the mood. I don't know how people can get like one favorite and stick to it a month. Like my favorite changes every day.
So I wanted to ask, what cartoons that have yet to be released are you excited for? Or is there anything you're on the hype?
Actually, no. I'm actually one of the very few reviewers that don't like to do that, because when you do get hyped for things, you kind of put a little bit of your credibility and basically your word on the line. So that can be safe with a lot of things. And I know a lot of people do this more in the gaming side of things, where they kind of hype up a game to be really, really good. Considering that I don't have any connections in the industry and I never know what's going on behind the scenes, a show that looks good because we're being seen the best parts of it publicly could end up tanking. I know a lot of people are really hyped for shows like Amphibia, The Owl House, shows that are going to be on Disney, created by people who originally worked on Gravity Falls. You also have Infinity Train. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out that I'm excited about, but as far as hyping about, not really. I that's the one thing that sets me apart from other channels. I tend to wait for things to come out and then sort of form an opinion, a support based off of it. In fact, with Mao Mao, that was actually something that a lot of people were hyping day one. It was going to be the next greatest thing. It was going to fill a void for Adventure Time. And then when you see the first episode, and this is just my opinion, of course, it does have a lot of ways to go. And we can never really see if it's going to build up to something big until we let it play out. So, never been a hype beast.
So would it be safe to say you're a wait until it releases type of guy?
Absolutely, and that's why reviews really do matter. Like you can always go off of something based off of faith. Like for example, if Sims 5 ever comes out, probably in like 2040 or something like that, I'm definitely going to buy it because of my experiences with the first 4 Sims games. But that's on me. Also, just knowing that if I do get burnt in the decision, that I'm taking responsibility for it. I'm not going to try to put the blame on anyone else for that, because I could have easily waited for a review to come out and then see.
I've heard of buyer beware, but I think they're starting to develop a reviewer beware.
Yeah.
It's like,
Absolutely.
want to think twice about even reviewing that.
Absolutely.
And so Peck was telling me you also do commissions. Is that true?
I have been doing graphic design commissions since 6 months ago.
So this is fairly new.
Very much so. I wanted to basically work on my own banner, make it look a little bit better. And I noticed that when I commissioned people, they didn't necessarily know exactly what I wanted. They kind of had their own style, and they kind of just slap on whatever icon or whatever like branding that you have onto their style. And that doesn't necessarily work with my channel, because I'm not a gamer, so having a gamer style banner just doesn't make sense. So I basically went out of my way to learn Photoshop because I had the Adobe Creative Suite. And ever since then, I've given quite a bit of people in this community banners, including people like Enter, Gem Reviews, Shadow Streak. A lot of people. I've made a lot of banners behind the scenes.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually.
You have any examples that you might be able to show us?
Oh, of course. Do you want me to send them now?
Yeah, right in the Discord.
All right. I'll pop a few in art, but yeah, it was just an example of me wanting to work on basically improving my channel myself, because I don't necessarily draw. That's like the one vulnerability that I have. Like, I could do everything else except draw, and I know a lot of people, they kind of just slap together a banner and call it a day, but considering that this is going to be sort of the first impression that many people have,
it's the hook.
Have at least a great front shop sort of look.
Yeah, because that YouTube channel, that is your shop. And if you don't keep a clean shop, people are going to come in here and go, what's going on? I don't know. And they're out. They're gone. Bye-bye.
All right, so I actually remembered, I actually started to, at first I had them all in one folder, but I was taught very harshly behind the scenes to organize after a hard drive totally failed on me.
Flooded in? Wow. I like the red and black.
And it's actually crazy, because a lot of people sort of look at, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, and he was telling me about how I look at colors and color palette and stuff like that, and it's honestly, I know a lot of people would disagree, but I don't really see myself as artistic. It just kind of makes sense to have a consistent color, like at least a consistent color palette, because it allows people to recognize who you are a lot easier. Like, for example, you would know Nintendo from white and red. You would know Spider-Man from red and black. You would know Sonic from blue, and Pikachu from yellow. It's just something that sort of helps people recognize.
It's part of their brand.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All part of branding. And I like the other tone of gray. I was like, I think gray's not used enough, in my opinion. I feel like the primary colors get all the looks, because they stand out.
I totally get that. Lots of people, when they come to me for commissions, they ask for crazy things, like they want bright pink, bright green, and then dark purple to all be used. And when you just think about that in your head, it looks crazy, but that's because a lot of people don't necessarily know that colors like gray, when they're used next to something else, it works really well. Like, to have a bright red and bright blue, you'd have to make it work. And some people and some brands have, but it does take a lot of nuance.
Well, I have to say, a lot of these banners look absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, they look
and
really
I highly
great.
recommend you guys reaching out. If you're looking to update your banner, man, I did this thing a year ago. I was not really on top of my game, and who's got the time really to sit down and work on these? So hit up Alpha J, get a extremely well done banner.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Touch on another thing, and I think this came out about a week or two ago. I don't know if you've heard about it, but SpongeBob is getting a spin-off series called Camp Coral, and so far we know it's about a younger SpongeBob, and it's going to be done in CGI animation. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are you at all a SpongeBob advocate?
So a lot of people in the community have essentially not been too happy about this prequel, because it goes against Hillenburg's wishes, the creator of SpongeBob, that he did not want SpongeBob to expand. We've seen a lot of videos.
That is what I've heard, yeah.
That basically Nickelodeon is disrespecting Hillenburg's legacy by coming out with prequels. And I do sympathize in a few areas when it comes to that, because in a sense, if the timing of it was pretty convenient, considering that SpongeBob has already been on top for more than a decade now. The first movie is well beloved in many people's hearts, even people who have moved on from animation. And it does seem a little bit of a scummy move to do it 6 months or 8 months after his passing, somewhere in that area. But on the other hand, the business end of me is still thinking about the fact that when
it's SpongeBob.
Well,
Do you
when
not do more with the SpongeBob license?
Well, that too, but when you pitch something to a company, you have to give your idea away as an intellectual property, an IP, and they own it. It's the reason why, like, for example, Butch Hartman can't just take Danny Phantom and work on it and release it on YouTube. He doesn't own Danny Phantom. Nickelodeon owns Danny Phantom. So, in a sense, they were being nice enough to Hillenberg to not do any of this. And in a sense, and it does sound pretty brutal, but it is the honest and financial truth that he didn't necessarily, they did honor his wishes while he was still around to not expand, but now that he's no longer here, it does lead into the question of would they just not want anything more to happen? Like, imagine if Stan Lee said, I wouldn't want any more Marvel stuff after I'm gone. Like,
exactly.
That's not a realistic thing to do. And more on that, this is just something that again, it goes back to the whole waiting until we see, because this very well could be good, it could be respectful, it could be something that people go on to enjoy. We don't know. All we know is that Paul Tibbitt, former showrunner, I believe he could still be showrunning of SpongeBob, came out and tweeted out that this was more of an executive decision than a creative one. But I just don't like to, as much as I don't like to hop on hype campaigns, I also inversely don't like to hop on hate campaigns either. So that's why I've been pretty quiet about Camp Coral, because like with all the other animated shows
with
that are
your
coming out,
style.
I'm waiting out. I'm just waiting it out, waiting to see something, waiting to see episode 1.
That's a pretty good, honestly a really good way to look at the whole situation, or really not even just for that specifically, just in general. Yeah, I noticed that when I've been subscribed to your channel for a few months now, and I noticed that, like, you don't seem to jump on things like everyone else, and, that honestly, that's a pretty refreshing thing. In my opinion, it's like, oh good, he's just not jumping at anything that comes his way like a starving cat.
Yeah, and a great example of that is the Gumball finale. It came out on the Cartoon Network website, provided you have cable info and whatnot. And a lot of people want me to cover it, but it airs on television the 24th. So essentially, I would be covering a quote-unquote leak. That makes sense. And a lot of other channels have covered it, but I'm waiting to cover it until the 24th. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, for me personally, I feel like the quality of an audience that would wait for you to cover something patiently and let you essentially create a video that's quality and worthwhile, and not one that was turned around in 24 hours, is just a better crowd, even if it takes a little longer to grow. I actually don't. Of all the cartoons that are out right now, I don't cover Steven Universe. I've only covered it once in a Versus with Gravity Falls, another show that I don't cover that often, only because I wanted to get those shows out of the way as far as like covering modern shows. I do know of it, and I do know of it being a musical with Chance the Rapper and a whole bunch of other people. But as far as following the show consistently, I don't, because of the fact that when I was starting out my channel, a lot of people were covering Steve Universe. A lot of people were covering Adventure Time. A lot of people were covering The Simpsons, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, Avatar. So back when I started, I wanted to cover other shows that weren't being covered that much, like Gumball, like King of the Hill, Foster's, Clarence. So that led into me not watching shows like the Steven Universes, the Starverses. In fact, in the future, I may not even cover Amphibia or the Owl House that much either, because it appears that a lot of my peers are talking behind the scenes and they're going to be covering that. And not only because of just the fact that of the whole contrarian thing, but just more of the fact of Steven Universe is a very continuity story heavy show. And I've just throughout my entire childhood not been interested in continuity heavy story-based shows. Like, for example, in Cartoon Network in the early to mid 2000s, they had shows like Dexter's Lab, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Powerpuff Girls, Foster's, Camp Lazlo, and these aren't continuity heavy shows. SpongeBob, The Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, these are not continuity heavy shows, and it shows with what I review. There actually isn't that many times where I cover a story heavy show because that's just not what I watch casually. So basic in layman's terms, I don't really plan to cover it. I plan to watch it and support it, but it's not something that interests me. I'm not too interested in following 6 story-heavy episodes and trying to keep up with all the lore and world building and stuff
all
like
right,
that.
Here's a different question for you. So this is a little more about the character you use for your videos. So what made you want to be... not that there's anything wrong with it, because pandas are cute, but what made you want to use a panda?
Because I needed something to brand myself, and pandas are my favorite animal.
That's a good, honest answer. See, I made my character's an eagle. I actually don't like eagles that much. I mean, they're one of my favorite birds. I actually like rhinos. Those are my favorite animals, but I thought a bird would be easier.
Cool.
So say someone had like 30 minutes to live. What would you recommend someone to watch before they die?
If for some reason they were so terrible that they didn't have any family or friends that would be around them to talk, and they were just alone with doctors who were just paid to be there and care for them, and the only thing that they were interested in is animation, then they, if in all honesty, just channel surf. Everyone has different tastes. Like some people, like I talk to some people who really enjoy the crudeness and adult nature of Family Guy, and I talk to other people who love the soft world building aspects of Hilda. That's the beautiful thing about animation. It can go wherever you want it to go. It can get as rude as Mr. Pickles, or it can be as nice as Blue's Clues.
I forgot about Mr. Pickles.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question. If you're not really going by major ads or recommendation, how do you find new material and new shows to
what review? I do personally, and this is just from a reviewer perspective, I try to at least get the gist of everything. Like with Camp Coral, I know the gist of it. I haven't looked too much into it, only because I've been working on this next Rise and Fall video. I know the gist of Amphibia and the Owl House. I know the gist of a lot of different shows. So I would go and I would look through news, look through what other reviewers are talking about, and also the most important thing, just talk to my own community and ask them, like, what have you been watching recently? In fact, that's the first question that I ask a lot of people on my Discord, like, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. What have you been watching recently? Because it's more about, for me, when it comes to finding new things, it's a lot of it also has to do with the people and understanding what they like. Because for me, I'm a very open-minded person, so I don't outright reject watching anything as egregious as apparently egregious. I haven't seen it yet, but My Cartoon President to something totally inoffensive and safe as The Loud House. I kind of just, anything I see that's animated, I want to get into. Like even with this 16 video, just looking at the stuff that Teletoon, a Canadian-based television company,
they
aired a lot, and it's a lot of stuff that I don't know. So, just a matter of research.
And that's how you get into it.
Mm-hmm. So, any questions you want to ask us, or anything like that? Or?
What made you get into interviewing?
It wasn't our main thing we wanted to do. Actually, originally, that's not true. I'm contradicting myself right now.
Yeah, tell them the show that inspired us.
Yeah, basically, I was a big fan of Space Ghost Coast to Coast growing up, and I noticed a lot of these, a bunch of YouTube channels, like, there's not really, like, a talk show like one. Like, where they kind of just sit there and they talk to the guy through the TV like Space Ghost would have. Like, there's not many like that. I thought, maybe having like a different YouTuber on like each week or each month would be a pretty neat idea, and we can, sort of bringing everyone big, small, like sort of together, because I noticed like there's all these like group circles of YouTubers, but like, you know, there's like I never saw like any kind of togetherness. Like, you know, we're kind of not like a giant community, even though like there's a community, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, that
A lot of sub-communities.
yeah, and it's just like, you know, we need to bring everyone together because we're all kind of doing the same thing, no matter, you know, what, you know, shape or whatever we're doing.
Different folks, different strokes. And it's just really great to have people come on and we learn about their mythology, what they're passionate about, and kind of gives you a background look at how somebody's thinking. And it's interesting to see how folks before the refined product.
It's also interesting that you guys did a channel together. What led into that?
That's fun. So we've actually been best friends since high school, so we've been doing a bunch of YouTube projects together. Our first major thing, we actually did an abridged series, because that was the big thing at the time back in 2010.
Oh, right that way.
And I was like, alright, what's gonna make us popular? That was our mindset at the time.
No, our goal was we wanted to do an abridged series, but we wanted to do it on a show that did not already have an abridged series.
That was the other thing, yes. So we chose...
3 hours later of searching every anime conceivable, we settled up on SD Gundam, which was on Cartoon Network afternoons for, I think, about 2 years.
Yeah. And that went as well as you thought it. Yeah, as you think it would.
Extremely well.
Yeah, so then we stopped doing it for a bit, then Kahl comes over.
Hiatus.
Like about a couple year hiatus, and Kahl comes back and goes, hey, wanna try doing this again in a different way? And I'm like, yeah, but what do we call it? Then I just said Pehk and Kahl, because that's funny, and it rolls off the tongue.
Nice.
Alright, Alpha J. So I do want to thank you for coming out tonight and talking with myself, Kahl, and my feathered friend Pehk.
No problem, man. I really wanted to work with smaller creators and help a lot of people grow, because a lot of people they don't necessarily have that opportunity. A lot of people, once they start getting big, they don't
get busy,
get back, and it's not something that people. I'm always the type of person where that's not necessarily required. I would never like point to someone and say that you haven't given enough.
Yeah.
But for me, thinking about the goals that I have and I set with my channel, for this whole summer, I just want to help out a whole bunch of people, especially the smaller the better.
I want to bring people up, not, keep them down. I don't think you'd go out keeping people down. I don't even know how you do that.
I don't know how that would be done either.
Downvote! Haha!
There's a whole bunch of people.
Great summer.
Thousands of people try to keep down, but it never works.
No.
If the trending page says anything.
Not in our corner of YouTube. Nothing but love on this desk.
Love and compassion.
I don't like the way you say it.
What do you mean?
I got chills.
So I was doing like a stretch during that, so.
Alpha J, everyone, go check out his channel. He's got tons of review content if you're at all interested in
you better
cartoons. Yeah, because they're great.
They are really
all right, I am Kahl.
And I'm Pehk.
And this is Pehk and Kahl.
Signing off.
Signing off.
See ya.